Business residence permit in the Czech Republic is the most complicated residence permit you can get. I'll explain why in a second, and I'll also explain you how you can get it and when you can get it. But first of all, thank you for coming here, thank you for watching the video, and hopefully this will be useful. If not, please comment and I'll be happy to answer any related questions you might have. But let's go. So, first of all, what is a business residence permit or when you can get it? Business residence permit is a residence card with a validity of up to 2 years, which you usually get as the second step after a long-term visa, long-term business visa. So if you came here as an English teacher or another type of freelancer and you got the visa sticker into your passport for 1 year, and if you want to stay longer than that first year, you have to basically apply for a residence permit under the same purpose of stay, which is business. So usually it's the second step after you get the first business visa. In some cases you can also apply not as the second step, but for example if you studied in the Czech Republic and now you're on the job seeker residence permit, then from that you can also switch to the business residence permit if you wanted. There are no limitations in that. If you wanted to switch to the business residence permit from any other type of residency, like employee card, blue card, student before you finish the studies, or family reunification, whatever, you can only do it after 5 years of living in the Czech Republic. There is this rule, but the exception is there. If you go through the job seeker residence permit, then you can switch even earlier than after 5 years. And another exception is if you were a family member of an EU citizen and now you're not anymore. So you had an EU partner, for example, you split your ways, your residence permit was cancelled, and now you have the 60 days to apply for some other type of residency. This is the time when you can also apply for the business residence permit. And why is it so complicated? Why I mentioned in the beginning that it's the most complicated one? That has many reasons. First of all, there is a huge amount of factors which influence if you will succeed with that application or not. I've seen people being in the process for years, like 3 years even, for this type of residence permit because they could never figure out how to get all the documents properly in time. So they will always send in letters with Ministry of the Interior to each other. Plus, each of the points are very important and can completely destroy the process. So the most important part of the process is that you need to show that you have high enough income, that you're making enough money on monthly basis. So for the first visa, for example, you just need to show that you have enough money in your bank account. But for the residence permit, you need to show that you've been making enough money on monthly basis. And that can be kind of tricky, especially if it's if you're still within your first year, you haven't done your taxes, then you need to provide all the invoices and bank statements, all that, showing the income. And the ministry doesn't have to be fine with that because they have a very specific idea of what an income means. Or the other thing is that you have to do your taxes right. But many people do this mistake that they hire an accountant, usually the cheapest one, to do their taxes because they think it's just taxes. It's in no way related to their residence permit. But then when they come to the point that they have to apply for a residence permit, which happens to clients who come to us who haven't worked with us since the beginning, like from the first visa, but maybe they did the first visa with someone else and then they realized that they don't want to work with that person anymore and they came to move to Prague. That happens, and in many cases those people have the taxes done incorrectly, which means usually that you're using the Czech way of doing taxes, so you pay as little taxes as possible, but then for the ministry it seems like you're not making enough because they have a special calculation of how much money you need to be making, and if you're not making at least this minimum on paper, they don't care what you're making in real, but they only care what you can prove through documents. So if your tax return says that you made 100,000 crowns, they're looking for 150. Unfortunately, that's a problem and you will not get the residence permit approved. So when you're doing taxes, with the aim of using it for your residence permit application, then you need to hire an accountant who knows what they're doing. If you need a recommendation, get in touch. I'll be happy to recommend the guy we work with. But even if you do it through someone else, you just need to explain to them that it's like your residence permit future depends on that, and also your whole future in the Czech Republic, and that they need to be like super sure what they're doing. That's one thing. Another thing related to that income is that, for example, in 2022, the ministry increased the limit of like the minimum requirement for your income 3 or 4 times during the year. Because of the inflation, which was 18% or something like that, they gradually increased the limit. So even if your taxes for 2021 were done properly for 2021, in 2022 they were missing like 50% of income, because that's how much it was increased. So you also need to take this into account. And then of course there are many other moving pieces, like for example your trade license expiring because your trade license is always valid only like has the same validity as your most recent residence permit or visa. So if you're on a long-term visa with a business purpose of stay, then your trade license has the same validity. If you're applying for a residence permit and you get a bridging visa, you extend the trade license based on that, and you need to keep doing it until you get the residence card, and then you extend it for the 2 years. If you miss one of the bridging visas, your trade license expires, and then you don't have the purpose of your stay, because your purpose of stay is business, but you don't have the business license, which is a problem. Then obviously other problems are that you need to prove that you have no debts in any of these authorities, like Social Security, Healthcare, Income Tax Office, Customs. And even if you have like 1 crown debt, or we had that case actually, that's why I'm saying that, even if you have 1 crown debt, the authorities will not issue the proof of no debts, which is again complication for the residence permit. And there are many more moving pieces like that, which is the reason why that makes this type of residence permit the most complicated to get. And unless you've been living here for years, that you speak Czech and that you understand all the visa processes and how the ministry works, I would definitely not recommend anyone to try to do it on their own. Of course you can try, but what we've seen in our daily practice, that those people who try themselves or who try with some unexperienced advisors usually come to us in the middle of the process saying, hey, I'm screwed, can you help me with that? The problem is that we usually can't, because if you're already in the middle of the process and you started the process with someone else, it's very hard to take over the case, because we don't know how they started the case, if they received some documents they didn't tell you about, so what's your actual status with the ministry. Because it also happens, we had a client who came to us saying, yeah, I've been in the process for 2.5 years, and my visa advisor keeps telling me that, yeah, it's in the process and they cannot do anything. So we checked with the ministry, and the residence permit was denied like 1.5 years ago already. So the client was basically staying here illegally for 1.5 years because he didn't know his residence permit was denied because someone never told him. So these things happen, and those things make the business residence permit the most complicated in the whole visa process. So guys, if you need any help, get in touch, we'll be happy to help you. If you're brave enough and you're trying yourself and you just have some questions, feel free to write a comment and I will do my best to reply. Or also consider joining my channel where you can ask questions and I will record a video specifically for you, for the question, and it's only for members. So no one else on the whole YouTube will see that, only members of the community. So guys, hopefully this was helpful. Thank you very much for joining, and see you again Thursday. Bye bye.